Hello and welcome back to room 210. Step inside, sit down, kick your feet back and relax. Let's open the guest registry and see who we've had a visit from lately. Well, seems we have a new submission. Let's see what Miss Cynthia has to tell us. Seems she had a bit of a fright late one night. It was the middle of summer, and I was sick. Being sick in the warmest part of the year is never a good thing. It's really never a good time to have a toothache. And I was in major pain, and not a single dentist office had an appointment for at least 2 more weeks. I had been up for 3 days and 2 nights, and I was tired. So tired. Because during those 3 days and 2 nights, I had maybe been able to fall asleep for 10 to 15 minutes at a time, maybe 4 or 5 times. I was as frazzled could be. I'd tried everything over the counter that the dentist office had recommended, but nothing seemed to do it any good. As everyone settled into bed, I resigned myself to yet another night in the recliner. It was so hot in the living room when you turned the AC off, but my tooth was hurting so bad I just couldn't take the pain. Every time the air hit my face, it throbbed a little harder. So, instead of moving the chair all the way to the other side of the room, I just pulled it forward slightly and put it in front of the window, turned the AC off, and opened the window. Then I pulled the blanket up over me, because I've never been able to sleep without one, of course, even when it's hot, and got settled the best I could. Once I was settled in, I tried to drift off. I had taken what looked like to me absolute handful of Tylenol over 30 minutes before. It still hadn't kicked in. So, as I lay there trying desperately to go to sleep, wanting more than anything to just close my eyes and drift away, I realized it just wasn't going to happen. It was at this point that I became desperate. So, as I lay there, I began to pray with everything in me that if God could at least grant me one of 2 mercies, I would be ever thankful. All I really wanted was for God to either knock me out and put me to sleep, or just kill me and get it over with, because I honestly was at a point where I could not take any more. After repeating my desperate prayer over and over, about 3 times, I was suddenly just gone. He must have actually answered my prayer and knocked me out, because I knew nothing, which was a welcome relief, to be honest. Little did I know, just an hour and a half later, I would be praying yet again. I awoke suddenly, an hour and a half after I had fallen unconscious, mercifully, to a sudden sense of danger. It was one of those feelings that you just can't mistake. You know, with everything in you, that something is terribly wrong. My skin was crawling all over my body as if it had a life of its own. I was literally terrified, though I had not heard a sound. Nothing I could identify in my immediate environment was out of place in the house. There were no strange sounds from the kitchen, no shadows in the corner, but I was completely frozen. The only thing I could move was my eyes. I knew in my heart that to make any sudden moves could be very, very dangerous to me. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. I could feel something between my feet on the footrest of the chair. I didn't know what it was. It was pitch black inside, and there's no light outside either. We live far away from town to have street lights here. I just couldn't place what it would be. As I kept glancing around, I thought to myself, is that what woke me up? Could that be what it is? If so, maybe it's just the cat, and she just startled me. As my eyes roamed around my immediate environment, what little of it I could see. I finally glanced over to the window, which I was less than a foot from. The window was open. There was nothing but a screen between me and the outside. It was then that I noticed what had woken me. I was terrified. I had never seen anything that scared me so badly in all my days. We all have fears of looking out a window at night and seeing a stranger peering in at us. We've all had those creepy feelings when we're watching scary movies and they show a particularly scary monster right outside a window, and we wonder what we would do if we were in that position. Well, I now know what I would do. I froze. But this was no stranger. This was no human at all. This was something straight from the pits of hell, and it was staring at my feet. My heart raced. Just a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet away from me, stood a black hulking thing that bore no resemblance to a human. It bore no resemblance to anything I had ever seen, nor do I ever hope to see again. I didn't know what to do. It was paying me no mind, but still it was so close, and it was staring at whatever the lump between my feet was. It was then that the mother inside me kicked in. I had a 6-year-old daughter that loved to curl up beside me at night. So, my heart went to the scariest place it's ever been. I couldn't see what was between my feet because it had curled itself up underneath the blankets. I thought to myself, what do I do? I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to speak or to make a sound and try to scare whatever this thing was away. I didn't know what to do. Fear enveloped me. My biggest fear at that point was that that thing was focused on what could very well be my child, and the mother in me wanted to reach out the window and Clyde's eyeballs out, but I knew there was no way I could fight that hulking thing staring at that blanket. I took my foot and gently moved it sideways until I was touching what was under the blankets. It was then that I realized that it was in fact my daughter. As I said, she was 6 years old and very small for her age. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to respond. I have never felt so utterly and completely helpless in my entire life. I was too sick to even defend myself. How was I going to defend her? It was at that point that once again, for the second time that night, I began to beg for mercy, hoping with everything in me that God would answer this prayer quicker than the first. I closed my eyes and screamed out within myself for God to please tell me what to do. I was completely helpless. How much more so was she? As I began to open my eyes slowly, terrified at what I would see, fearing that it would be even closer to the window, I saw light start to fade into the room, but it was coming from down the hallway. I was directly in front of a hallway that led back to a bathroom and a second bedroom. My bedroom was in front of me, so I knew no one had come from there and gone down the hall, and my daughter was on the chair at my feet, so I knew there was no one else in the house. Where was that light coming from? I was too terrified to even hazard a guess, so I sat helplessly and watched as the light came up behind me and floated past. It was about the size of a basketball and more of an oval than an orb shape, and it lit onto the sofa on the other side of the room, and as it seemed to sit down on the sofa, the light began to expand until it took the form of what appeared to be an elderly, grandfatherly looking man. You know those old-timey grandpas that you see in movies. They're over 6 feet tall and very stern looking. It was one of those, and I thought to myself, as tears started to stream down my face. Are we going to be attacked from both sides? What do I do? I have never been so scared, and I hope to never feel that fear again. In that moment, as I sat with my eyes going from right to left, looking at the two of them, unsure what to do, I began to calm a little, which was odd. I couldn't understand where it was coming from, but for some reason, I began to feel almost peaceful, as if there was really nothing to worry about. But at the same time, the mother in me was panicking. As I looked one to the other and back again, the thing at the window, it began to show an anger. It had gone from looking at the lump between my feet as if it was something of great value that it was ready to reach in and just run away with, to looking at the thing on my couch as if it wanted to either flee it or destroy it. And as I glanced at the thing on my couch, the stern look became very hard, and I noticed he wasn't looking at me or my daughter. He was staring down the thing outside my window. In a show of rage, the creature outside leaned into the window, its face almost touching the screen. At that moment, I think I felt my heart stop for a second. But as it did, my eyes darted over to the couch, where the shape of this grandfatherly-looking person leaned forward, as if daring it to move. Daring it. I was stunned. I heard a low growl from outside. At least that's what I call it. It was a terrible sound, and as I heard the low growl, I saw the thing on the couch lean further forward. My eyes darted toward the window again, and the thing outside jumped back as if physically hit. I glanced back at the couch to see the man, or the shape of a man, starting to lean back, and when I glanced at the window again, the thing was gone. Completely gone in the blink of an eye, and I was left, just me, my daughter, and this glowing, bright man on the couch. The stern look was gone. I was in shock. A wave of pure peace washed over me, and as he stood and stepped over beside my chair, looking down at my daughter and at me, my eyes began to flutter. But before I fell asleep, I made sure I told him that I thanked him with everything in me, and I thanked what sent him there to protect us. As I told him that from this point forward, he would be welcome in my home. Whatever he needed to be there for, he smiled, and my eyes fluttered closed. I slept better the rest of that night than I have slept since I was a child. Thankfully, my daughter never stirred during the events that took place that night. Maybe one day I'll tell her about it. 2 prayers answered in one night. How many people can say they've lived through that? It was the scariest night of my life, and I hope to never feel that fear again. Well, seems like she did have a terrible fright. It's bad enough to be sick in the middle of summer, but for heaven's sake, to have to deal with that on top of it? Please, honey, I would have died right there. You know what? I hope she never has to go through that again, too, because that sounds horrible. Well, guys, that's the story for today. So, please feel free to join us again here at Room 210. We'll open up the guest book next time and see who's been visiting. Thanks. Feel free to like and subscribe if you see fit. If not, thank you for at least sharing this long with us. We appreciate you here. Hey, this is Dead One Rollin saying thanks for stopping by and spending a little time with us here at the Macabre Motel, hanging out here in Room 210. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. And thank you again for spending time with us. Hoping that you may always be a voyeur of the dark side and not a victim.